You know that feeling of just being constantly, overwhelmingly exhausted? What if I told you that is not a personal failure? Seriously, it doesn't mean you just need to hustle harder. It turns out this is actually a deeply wired biological stress response. So in today's explainer, we're going to unpack the actual science behind this, diagnose what's literally happening inside your body, and figure out a completely science-backed path to hitting the reset button on our systems.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1. The modern stress epidemic. 2. Your canary in the coal mine. 3. Popcorn brain and digital overload. 4. The gut-brain connection. And finally, number 5. The rule of 2. Let's get right into it.
Okay, Section 1. The modern stress epidemic. Let's look at the biological path. Get this, 72%. Right now, a staggering 72% of people are struggling with stress, and a massive 70% have at least one feature of burnout. Think about that. If you're feeling completely overwhelmed lately, you really need to understand that you are part of a massive, perfectly normal majority. You're not broken, you're just navigating a really high-stress modern world.
To understand why, we have to look at how our brains operate in two completely different modes. On the left side here, we've got the amygdala. This is our primitive survival brain, the one in charge of the fight or flight response. Then, on the right is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part right behind your forehead that handles executive function, planning, basically what we'd call adulting. Now, our bodies are absolutely brilliantly designed to handle short-term acute stress. It lets the amygdala temporarily take the wheel so we can run away from a tiger. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Modern chronic stress, the endless emails, the bills, the 24/7 news cycle, it literally traps us in that amygdala survival mode. And when that happens, it effectively shuts down our prefrontal cortex. We totally lose our ability to think strategically, all because our brain genuinely believes we are constantly running for our lives.
And what's so wild about this is how chronic stress actually changes the entire definition of burnout. We used to think of burnout as just being totally lethargic, right? Like apathetic, literally unable to get out of bed. But check out these atypical burnout symptoms. Today, one of the leading signs of burnout is actually an absolute inability to disconnect from work. It's checking your emails relentlessly at 10 p.m. It's truly believing you aren't stressed simply because you're still getting a ton of things done. Listen, if you are hyper-engaged but literally cannot unplug, that is your biology crying out for a break.
Which brings us to Section 2, your canary in the coal mine, your body's early warning sign. You've probably heard the phrase, canary in the coal mine, right? Well, historically, this was a very real, vital practice. Coal miners would bring small birds down into the mines as an early warning system. Because a bird's respiratory system is incredibly sensitive, it would stop singing the second the invisible air turned toxic, way before the miners themselves felt any of the effects. Well, just like those miners, we so often ignore the toxic environment of our own chronic stress until our personal, biological canary just totally stops singing.
So you gotta ask yourself, what is your canary? Because these warning signs are highly individualized, and they often pop up as really surprising physical symptoms. For some people, it's getting heart palpitations at night the second their head hits the pillow. For others, it's sudden gastrointestinal upset, totally unexplained dizziness, strange spots on the tongue, or even just catching a persistent cold every single time work gets crazy. Seriously, I want you to reflect on this for a second. What is your unique physical tell? What's your personal Achilles heel that flares up when the invisible stress in your life finally hits that toxic level?
Moving right along to Section 3, popcorn brain and digital overload.
So, why do we endlessly doom scroll? Come on, we all do it, and we all feel pretty guilty about it afterwards. But it turns out there is actually a profound evolutionary reason behind why we simply cannot put our phones down at 11 p.m. It all boils down to what we call the night watchman urge. Remember the amygdala, that survival brain we just talked about? Well, back when we were living in caves, somebody had to stay awake by the fire to scan the horizon for danger and make sure the tribe was safe. Today, in our crazy, high-stress world, your amygdala feels fundamentally unsafe. So it literally prompts you to become the tribal night watchman. That thing we call popcorn brain, that total inability to disengage from constant rapid-fire bad news online, that's just your primitive brain frantically scanning the digital horizon for threats. It's just trying to keep you safe.
And the grip this night watchman urge has on us is absolutely staggering. 2,617, that is the average number of times a person checks their phone every single day. No way, right? But it's true.
Our brains are caught in this relentless, vicious feedback loop of feeling stressed and then seeking safety through a screen, which, ironically, just exposes us to even more stress. All right, Section 4, the gut-brain connection. How we can heal our second brain. Okay, get ready because this is probably one of the most mind-blowing facts you are ever going to learn. There is actually 3 to 5 times more serotonin in your gut than in your actual brain. Yes, your gut. Serotonin is the absolutely crucial hormone responsible for regulating our mood. It's what makes us feel happy and calm. We always think of it as this brain chemical, but the vast majority of it is actually produced right down there in our digestive tract. And this is because the trillions of gut bacteria living inside of us literally form a second brain, which scientists call the psychobiome. When we're stressed out, our gut takes a huge hit. But conversely, if we prioritize simple things like a healthy diet, actually getting enough sleep, and taking small daily breaks, we help this microbiome thrive. And when your gut bacteria are thriving, guess what? They produce the serotonin you desperately need, which directly and powerfully lowers your psychological stress. It's all connected. And finally, Section 5, the Rule of 2. Let's talk about sustainable habit change. Listen, if you take away nothing else from this explainer today, please remember this. Even positive life changes cause physical stress. A really famous landmark study from back in the 1960s found that overhauling your whole life all at once, like starting a new diet, a new intense workout routine, and a new job simultaneously, it actually shocks your biological system. Your brain literally interprets any massive change as a threat. This right here is exactly why those kitchen sink New Year's resolutions fail every single time. You just completely max out your brain's biological bandwidth for adaptation.
So, what's the actual scientific way to make a change? It's called the Rule of 2. Step 1, pick exactly 2 small changes. That's it, just 2. Maybe it's taking a 5-minute daily walk and deciding to keep your phone off the nightstand. Step 2, practice them consistently for 8 weeks, because that is exactly how long it takes to truly build a habit. And step 3, add 2 new changes only once those first 2 are completely solid habits. This deliberate pacing completely respects your brain's biological limits, and it virtually guarantees sustainable long-term success.
Of course, pulling this off requires a pretty massive mindset shift. Because let's face it, we live in a society that constantly praises toxic resilience. Productivity at all costs, ignoring our biological limits, that whole keep calm and carry on mentality, even when we are literally breaking down inside. But science shows us that true resilience is something completely different. True resilience is honoring your boundaries. It's intentionally allowing space for rest and recovery. You are a mere mortal, you're not a robot. And real strength absolutely requires taking breaks.
I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote right from our source material. Resilience is our innate biological ability to adapt, recover, and grow. But it also needs rest and recovery. It is not meant to be toxic. You absolutely have the power to reset your stress biology. So my provocative question to you is this. Based on the Rule of 2 we just talked about, what exactly are the 2 small things you're going to change today to reclaim your brain? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.